Minister, in your May speech, you referred to my recommendation of an SIU report. You remember we had a short discussion about that. The concern from my side is that, how many months later, it's almost 5-6 months, is that nothing has happened of that. And if you look at the Budlander report on Trillion, makes it very clear, he makes it very clear his concern, which he says should be a matter that concerns all South Africans, is that the malfeasance at the state-owned companies and at Eskom and the Trillion issues is continuing. The problem is that we are not seeing urgent action taking place. We have a public protector's report that you might have seen. We had a lengthy discussion with Mr. Molefe last night about observations with its findings, but it does set out a lot of prima facie evidence. It's a year later. That report was referred to the Hawks and the MPA. A year later, no action has been taken place. You indicated in your statement that you're pleased to hear that yesterday the NPA has established a crack investigation team. Now, they told the Sunday Times in July, they said they've established a team. They told us in the Justice Committee in September they've established a team. Now they're telling us again yesterday they've established. There's no action. They have an asset forfeiture unit that could go and immediately, as they've done in other cases, go and attach assets. So we see you've called for, and that's beyond your control, it's not your fault about the SIU unit, but it would be very useful if one could put pressure somehow, and I think that's Parliament's role as well, to call the Hawks and the NPA to account. Why is it taking so long? And why is the Minister sitting on that SIU proclamation, and the President then has to then sign it off? This Parliament sat with the SABC inquiry. We had the same situation. I helped draft that recommendation for the SIU to come in. The President sat on that proclamation for a number of months. So that is the challenge, is we're not seeing action to address the malfeasance that is taking place and what could be, and there's a lot of evidence around, that could be billions of rands that is leaving the country. How do you respond to that?
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I have written a letter again to Minister Masuta because I would like this SIU investigation to take place. I'm not in control of the Hawks and all the others. I'm calling the SIU. And I think we can just put pressure to ensure that these investigations do take place. You know, the issue around the state of capture report, for example. Now, there is an issue that I mean, for me, the President was going to take it on review. Not take it on review, the President was going to appoint a commission of inquiry. And I think if we have it, it would actually help all of us. And I suppose there's no more calling for a commission of inquiry that can happen. So yes, I do think that this must be investigated. I think it must be investigated in a way that it can lead to prosecutions. Because at the moment, when we do investigations within Eskom, or in any of the other state-owned companies, there's not enough tangible information to, I mean, we've been able now in the last 6 months or 8 months, we've been able to have a number of people suspended and so forth. But those then become long investigations into those people and disciplinary hearings and so forth. So it just to get it all sped up is what I suppose I agree with you on.
You see, the challenge is when you link that to the narrative around state capture, all the way up to President Zuma that was mentioned earlier today, then one can see delaying tactics taking place, because if he has to sign the proclamation, if he has to institute a commission of inquiry, and if he is part of the state capture and friendship with the Guptas, as is alleged, then that is a major challenge for us. How do we deal with that? But one of the ways that you've tried to deal with it is the Dentons report, and that was actually sanctioned by the board itself. But regrettably, that was only a 3-month period, and then it seemed to have been cut. I've read the Dentons report, and it seemed to have done a lot of good work on looking at the whole diesel contracts. But why was it cut so short? You see, again, there seems to be a problem. Why was it only given, and it wasn't your decision, it was the board's decision. So, but to assist you to do your job, that report comes out, and halfway through it, they're instructed, and there's a lot of questions around that issue as well.
A large number of the issues within the Dentons report were actually addressed. Because remember that, as I said earlier, that the diesel contracts, which were the bulk of the report in some respects, because it was, say, showing how, I can't remember, but people in other jobs were were actually diesel salespeople and were selling diesel, and it looked like the previous leadership at the time saw it as a black economic empowerment plan. So some of those matters have been raised, and it's been fixed, and it's been adopted. There are 2 issues in the Dentons report that's not been fulfilled. But you are absolutely right. The issue is that Dentons also made a recommendation that there should be further investigations into some of the 8 recommendations that they made. And, and some of those investigations have taken place. They're not completed yet because the company's large, and but I still feel that it's a SIU investigation that actually will lead to prosecution if there is any prosecution that must happen.
Are you aware that there is an that there is a report on coal contracts and transport for, I think it's a period of 10 years, that has just been finalized? Have you seen that report? But we got a report in the Justice Committee, I think about 6 months ago, that it was finalized. So it must be with the President. You probably wouldn't know if you haven't seen it.
I have written to the President to ask any reports from the SIU that I be given over the years on Eskom or Transnet or any of the other state-owned companies in my portfolio, that I be given access to it.
Thank you. Our challenge is, as my colleagues have mentioned, the different evidence that has been given to us today, the conflicting evidence as to the meeting of the Tony Gupta, Mr. Salim Essa, and Mr. Zola Soti at your house, and you denied that it took place. Do you say that you've never had such a meeting? Have you had a meeting at your house with those members? Because we have to weigh the evidence. That is our challenge. We've got to weigh the evidence. And you seem to qualify each time relating to your executive function. So have you had any meetings with the Guptas or Salim Essa relating to any other issue, or is it purely on your executive function that you're speaking about?
No, you asked initially the question,
yes,
and all the members have asked that question about, or whoever's spoken, about whether I met with Zola Tsotsi, Salim Essa, and Tony Gupta. No, I haven't met with them at my house. That's the question, and it's not in private, social, or any other capacity.
Can I ask you if you've met with them elsewhere?
Look, I know who they are. I've met I've said it before as well, that I have met the eldest brother a number of years ago, when I was still in the province, and I have been to his house at the time in Cape Town, and I know who the Guptas are. I can't tell you that I am social friends with the Guptas. I'm not social friends with the Guptas. And I'm neither executive friend. I don't hand over my executive functions to the Guptas either. So I feel quite uncomfortable about it, because it's as if everybody else is telling the truth and I'm the one lying about it.
But I think we're giving you the opportunity to
And I'm trying to explain
Absolutely.
it to you.
But you see, some of the page 4 of Mr. Zola Tsotsi's evidence this morning. He has a meeting with Tony Gupta. Tony Gupta says to him, "Chairman, you're not helping us with anything. We are the ones who put you in your position. We are the ones who can take you out." Now, we will put that to Mr. Gupta when he comes. You obviously are not aware of that, but you understand that that evidence plays into the narrative of the Guptas playing a major role in board appointments, which goes directly against your role of appointing the boards. How would you comment on that?
I'm again appointing boards.
Yes.
And it's very debilitating, because not many people want to be on a state-owned company's board. I can tell you at the moment it's very, very difficult to get board members. And I think if you follow a process, a very strict process, and I actually inherited that process, and this year, because of the 2014 fallout, I've actually strengthened the process. Because I think that if you, I appointed boards at the time. I never came in with a list of people. I've never changed a name on the board. I never brought in somebody else from outside onto the board. The unit that works with us looks at the criteria. What I check is that the criteria is fulfilled on the board. Now,
sorry, I'm limited with time, but I do appreciate your answer, and I've got a few minutes left. Were you not involved on procurement, but the whole issue around Tegeta, there's been a lot in the media, and the purchase of the Optimum wines, were you not very concerned when Minister Swart, first of all, the allegation that other ministers were involved? Mr. Molefe, Mr. Ngubane goes and meets Mines Minister Ramatlordi to suspend all of Glencore's mining licenses. Mr. Brian Molefe denied that last night. He said there was a different version. But here you have, that was in August 2015. September, Mr. Ramatlordi is fired. Then we see in December of 2015, Minister Zwane joins Tony Gupta and Salim Issa in Switzerland to meet Glencore and discuss the Optimum sale of Tegeta. Now, you've correctly said that you're not involved in procurement at all, but here you've got other ministers that seem to be involved. And then we've got the whole April 2016 late-night Eskom board meeting to approve a 659 prepayment, allegedly for coal, but it turns out it's the pre-purchase price. And the public protector then says that it is very clear, or she uses the word apparently, which we now is not speculative, and it's not in the fresh air like Mr. Molefe says, but it means it's manifest, it is obvious, it is very visible. That is the word apparent. That the Eskom board leant over backwards to accommodate the Tegeta in that whole deal, which we know is a Gupta-related company. If you look at the guarantee that was offered, if you see the prepayment. So when you put this together, it does seem that there was a lot of effort from the board, firstly, to benefit the Guptas in this company, and to the extent that ministers were involved as well.
But I also heard Ms. Naidu say, and it was just a part that she spoke about, that it's the kind of point I make when I speak about the cost-plus mines. For me, the supply of coal is an important thing. So do you get rid of the cost-plus mines in the short term, in the way it is structured? If there is a coal mine that is providing coal at 150 rand per ton, this is what I've defended before, at the time, do you support it? I then relate to Dr. Luyenge's question when he asked, are they blacklisted? Of course, Minister Zwane is involved, even though I'm not involved in procurement. Minister Zwane is involved in mining. And what Minister Zwane is doing is his business. But Tegeta and Optimum had a business relationship between two companies, and the companies were sold to each other. That's how I am logically explaining it to myself. If there is any other proof that, and I mean, for me, this is quite an important one. This is part of the investigation that I want to do. The procurement and contract management investigation. So if there's any other proof that it's been gotten through ill gains, then that must be reversed.
Minister, thank you. But we know National Treasury has already done an investigation and found major concerns, and that is before SCOPA of Parliament already. They have flagged it. They've said that, in fact, they've said that there should be a loan, there should be a forensic inquiry. So there has been a lot of questions around that sale, and we even see that the business rescue practitioners have laid charges for corruption because the payment should have gone to them and not to the Tegeta. So there's a lot of questions around there, but it does play into the narrative of state capture at a high level. And so I see my time is expired. Thank you, Minister.
But the forensic investigation is continuing at Treasury, and we are cooperating with them.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart.